And our panel will be joining us right now. We have Will Chason, Ronald Prent, Chuck's here, ROC himself, artist and engineer, and George Massenburg down there on the end. We're going to be joined by David Leonard virtually, and possibly Frank Filipetti. We have a lot of folks that are going to be talking today, so this should be very informative and very cool. Before we get into it, though, there's a great video that Sony has that we're going to show you, so enjoy this.
Sony has an incredible legacy in mobile audio. And now, here we are decades later, and they've done it for the creators with virtual mixing environment. Mixers generally are in the studio all day long and have to be in the studio.
My whole career has been based in the box. I mean, beautiful studios, but I'm still in the space.
The hardest thing is being away from your trusted listening environment, where you know your mix is going to translate and your client's going to be happy. One of the big challenges is trying to get the sound of speakers in a room into headphones.
Yesterday I experienced virtual mixing environment for the first time.
It was hard to believe.
Oh my God.
I was like, wait a second, there's no sounds coming out of the speakers.
It's just unbelievably real.
And it just like blows my mind. These new technologies will allow me to take my mixing environment anywhere in the world where I need to be.
To be in a space now where I can go out and feel the energy and translate that to music, it's a new era.
Very cool, and there's Mr. Leonard joining us virtually as well. Welcome aboard. All right, everybody. This is incredible technology, and I've been slowly schooled on all this over the last couple years. It's really something special, and these guys are all experts that use it almost every day and can speak to it, so this is going to be fun. Will, I guess let's start with you. If you could just talk about your first time you even found out about this and what your initial reaction was.
Yeah, I heard I think an earlier version than the official product that was kind of integrated into the WalkMix plugin before it was its own standalone application. And it was like, I think the feeling of hearing the space out of the speakers and the air in between, it was almost like, it's kind of shocking. Like you want to like take your headphones off and make sure that you're not like being cheated or something like that. It's a very out-of-body experience. For sure.
Yeah. And is that something you actually like you seriously had to do? Because I've heard this before. No, it's so realistic and so different and new that it's actually something that most engineers actually question at first.
Yeah, I mean, I try to like catch them tricking me every time I do it, to be completely honest. But it's all in my head.
And Ronald, if I can get your experience with this as someone who's worked with all different environments and amazing artists for many years in different countries and all that. When this new technology comes down the pike, what was your initial thoughts and reaction?
Blown away by it. It's when they came to my studio and did my profile, and I said you can turn the speakers off. They were already off. And this center imaging of the center channel right there where your big speaker is the thing that blew me away the most. And having the ability to sit there and pan stuff and actually hear that in a headphone, not over here, but hearing it where you wanted to hear. The only thing that I found was a very interesting experience too is there is no physicality anymore. You have this huge speaker in front of you, and when you turn that up, you physically feel that. That goes away. But I also found that it took me only 10 minutes to get used to that. Because it's just you close your eyes, or if you don't want to, you look at something else. But it's like buying a new set of speakers. It takes you a while to figure out how to work on them and how to learn from them. And with this, for me, it went really fast. And I mix on it now. I sit at home in my sunroom and look at the snow and mix a 916.
Similar experience for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like first time, when they do the testing on your ears, you put little microphones in your ears, and they run noise through all the different speakers, capture that, and then you put the headphones on, and there's a frequency sweep. But the way the whole thing starts is there's an announcement from the center channel speaker and then a white noise burst. That happens on before each individual speaker. Then you put the headphones on, and you hear that same, okay, we're about to start this, and there's this white noise burst. I had to take the headphones off and go, wait a second, was that the speakers or was that the headphones? And they go, that's just the headphones. And you can actually solo each speaker too. And it's amazing. It's like, okay, it's coming from that speaker. It's coming from that speaker. It's unlike anything you've ever heard before. And the idea that, basically we're mixing on speakers and we're going, this sounds so amazing. And you bring an artist in or somebody to listen, they go, oh, this is unbelievable. Everybody should be able to hear music like this. But we go, well, so how is everybody going to hear music like this? And if we can get this to the consumer, then they're going to totally get this. It's going to change the world.
We'll get into that. And ROC, your first experience with this as an artist yourself, and how you first reacted to this technology.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience. I kind of, it was a situation where I was working with another artist and the platform was asked to be done, and I just said yes because I'm like, hey, I'm in the immersive audio space. Can't be that hard. But it was cool because it was a different experience. 360 alone, with the sphere and just being able to kind of automate things and put it anywhere. You have full control of depth. You have full control of size. You can literally put things wherever you want. And there's no limitation. That's what I thought was cool. And instantly, as a creative, I wanted to make music in this format and see what I can put together and compose. I also went to the Sony lot in Culver City, and I had no idea what I was going there for. I thought I was just going there to listen to some stuff. I come in and I meet a few guys, and they're telling me to put these little small wires in my ears, which I didn't even know were microphones. And same experience, we did the sweep, and they're scanning, and I'm hearing the white noise and the voices, and I'm like, this is like some sci-fi shit. You know what I'm saying? But what blew my mind was, after we did the measurements, they told me to listen with my headphones on, and then they told me to take them off, kind of like an A/B thing. So I was doing it, and I turned around and I freaked out, and I'm like, what's happening? So just the translation between speaker and headphone was so unique. You actually got vertical, you got horizontal, you got the height, you got the distance, and that was just like, that was it for me. So.
I'm glad you mentioned that, speakers to headphones, because there's an advantage that I don't think will be mentioned immediately, which is that headphones are better at localization than speakers because you don't have comb filtering like you have in the object-oriented systems. I'm done. I can leave now.
Drop the mic.
Speaking of headphones, and if you guys can talk about the Sony, the MV1 headphones, and using those, and I'm sure a lot of you have used those exact headphones to make this work, and how that is actually a good partner, obviously, with this technology. So the actual MV1 headphones, and how that works with what you were saying.
Yeah, I've gotten to know the MV headphones quite a bit over the past couple months, and they really have become my preferred headphones. I think when the tracks sounds good on those headphones, it really has translated pretty well. Or when it sounds bad, then you're in a tough spot. With the sound localization with the VME mix engine in those headphones, it really works together well. But the cool thing is that VME works with other headphones too. So if there are other headphones that you like, you can really use whatever you'd like within that system, which I think is really nice that it's open, so you can have your preferences. But I'll tell you, the VME with the MV1 headphones, as far as object location and hearing stuff behind you or on top of you, I've never experienced quite anything like that with headphones.
It's clear we're all fans of it. And yes, I tried it with many headphones, and I do have to admit that with the VME1 headphone, it is the best. But the great thing, like you said, it works with any headphone except earbuds. But the better the headphone, the better the result of the system is. But with the VM1s, you can sit for 2-3 hours, and there's no weight on your head. It feels comfortable. It stays very true. I actually recently mixed a whole track solely on that in 916 for Atmos. I sent it off. It got back with no comments, and I played it yesterday on speakers in the Neumann demo room, and it sounds fantastic. It translates, and that's the most important thing for us. Is what I do here. Can I trust it? Yeah, okay. So I can do what I feel, and that goes as far as the LFE down to 10 hertz. So you actually experience that in the headphone. Not the pressure, air pressure, but you do experience the frequency and the balance of it is correct. And then play that back on speakers and go, yeah, I'm done.
You guys alluded to this, but if you can talk about just what this grants you, this technology, the flexibility, the portability, how you can do this now pretty much anywhere. You can do it while you're looking out at the snow. You can do it in an airport. If you just put into words how that's affected you personally in terms of your projects.
Well, I've not actually experienced doing that yet, but I have a house in Mexico on an island, and so I'm so looking forward to like hanging out there for a month and mixing a record and like, okay, it's time to go to the beach. I'm going to go to the beach and hang out. You know, it's yeah. You know, I might not come back to Nashville. So
we want Chuck's life, but go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me get an invite. For me particularly, I travel quite often between East Coast and West Coast. You know, project-based stuff, just being a part of just the industry and involved in the pro audio side, artistry, songwriting. So the access to VME, it allows me to make more distinctive decisions and actually be confident about those decisions, knowing that, you know, what I'm listening to is literally emulating a room that I was in. It's even so cool that I work in multiple rooms, and I work not only in 360. I work in different formats of immersive audio. And what's cool about VME is that they can go to any room and use any source to kind of measure and emulate what tuning or what sound you want from that particular room. And that works for me because I love certain rooms for certain things. I think just being like an environmental mixer, the environment is important. So I would go to a specific studio if I want a specific sound. So instead of having to actually physically be there, I can pull up my profile in VME and say, hey, I want to sound like Battery today. And because I love the low end, or, I want to sound like UMG in the mailroom or whatever. I think that accessibility just gives me so much more power, and it's easier for delivery. The end game is faster. We get more work. We make more money. It's a happy day.
That's all good. Speaking of other environments, let's go virtual and talk to David Leonard and talk about your experience with this, what your first experience was like, and how you've been able to incorporate this into everything that you do.
I love it. I've been mixing. I've done about 15 albums virtually. I travel as well. I took it into Maine. I mixed on the coast of Maine in headphones. The greatest thing is when I get back to my room and I play it on the speakers, it's 99% accurate. The low end is incredibly true to my speakers, and I don't feel like I have to change anything. I might move a couple of pans around just to see if it changes, but I'm like 99% of the way there when I open it up in the room. So I'm super happy with it.
What made you initially open to this technology? You guys have been doing this a long time, but David, like that kind of innate curiosity, willing to experiment. Some guys don't do this. Some engineers don't want to, learn new tricks. What was it about this that excited you from the start?
Well, we heard the Sony headphones maybe 5 years ago before they had the VME, but their model has always been the best, and I love it. So when they came around to Blackbird and they were measuring, I got measured over at Blackbird, but then I talked them into coming over and measuring me in my room, and that's been a game changer. If you get measured in your room that you're used to, and then you can mix in headphones and still be in your room, it's really helpful.
Very cool. Frank joined us down at the end here. Frank Filipetti, the esteemed Frank. If we can get your take on this, I know you always have a lot of interesting things to say. If you can talk about your initial experience with this and how it's informed your work and helped you out.
Hi. Well, I have a lot of interesting things to say. Unfortunately, none of them have to do with BME. So, no, I'd have to say that, as David just mentioned, I was able to listen to BME several years ago, and I was quite impressed with the technology. But then last year, we got to hear them at Blackbird Studios in a proper environment. And it's beyond remarkable. I was kind of blown away by the whole experience. The accuracy of the panning and the accuracy of the levels are so precise that on my first listen at Blackbird, after all the measurements were taken, I mentioned to Gus Skinnis and Hero, who were running the application, that I think the right rear channel is down by a couple of dB, and I'm having a little cancellation in the center channel versus what I would expect to hear with speakers. The next morning, they came to me and said, "You were right. We boosted, we found the right channel was down 2 dB exactly. And they made a slight adjustment in the center channel, and it was perfect." And so that's how accurate the system is. It allows you to hear not just whether levels are different, but actual panning in the right rear. I was able to say at my home, that vocal in the right is 2 dB louder, and they checked it out, and that's exactly what it was. So that's how accurate that system is. You really can't believe it until you experience it. It's a shame that you have to go through kind of a movie to get there, because I wish everyone across the country or across the world could actually do this. But the fact is, it's worth doing. And if you're a headphone listener, you'll never regret doing it.
Talk about the fun part of this, though. It's a movie, you have to go through it, but you mentioned like the sci-fi elements to all this, but just the fun of experiencing something new and fresh at this point in all your careers, to be able to do something like that and show this to artists and have them say, "Whoa, you got these tools, you have this technology." It really does seem like the future.
Well, definitely, and to add to that, it is a little bit of the access is not as accessible for the general public, but I think that's why Sony is cool, because they have a lot of products that actually enable these things, like the sound bars, and those are like the ways that you can actually start having this experience of what immersive audio sounds like. And as far as just I think your question was talking about, what was the question about?
It's a lot of work, maybe the measurement and all that kind of stuff, but it seems like this would be really enjoyable. You guys are doing something new. You guys are at the forefront of something versus being left behind, and you guys are right out there as pioneers.
Yeah, yes. And then you were talking about the artists, and I think that's where it's extremely important, is to be able to educate and come to the artists who are the people who are going to inspire everyone else to listen to this stuff. I always, when I'm mixing and I'm doing any type of immersive audio, I always love to connect with just the A&R management, whoever's the tastemaker, anyone, even the DJ, just so they can know what's going on, right? Because their involvement will influence everything, and then when they have a hands-on kind of like idea of what's happening, they're just, they're like, whoa, we can do this, or the attack on this guitar sounds like this, let's move this around. And predominantly I work a lot in legacy, and legacy is probably the hardest to convince. Hey, let's go into stereo. I mean, let's go into immersive audio, and they're just like, no, it sounds good in stereo. But you know, sitting down with them and then them having the experience to say, hey, I can recreate what my song sounds like, what it feels like, and give my fans something different. They're open to that, and it just activates just more things. You know what I'm saying? Music and technology is in full parallel, and I think we have to start taking more and full advantage of that just to create new experiences, because the attention span is getting shorter and shorter. You know, we went from 1 speaker to 2 speakers, now we got hundreds. So, you know, it'll create more experiences, and that's just where it's at right now.
Speaking of legacy, I know you work with so many great artists, including the Police. We talked about that before. This guy actually worked on Zenyatta Mandata, amongst other things, right? Remember this correctly? When you look back, you mentioned legacy. You look back at some of those recordings and the excitement about possibly making, you know, surround immersive type things with these and doing that 360 thing. How exciting is that for you? How open are artists to doing that?
It's more or less like he says. It's also a hearing is believing thing. You have to educate them, because they know their baby is stereo and they love their baby, and you want to put new clothes on the baby and give it a bit of dimension. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It also sometimes the music doesn't allow it. There's some stuff which sounds great in stereo. If you start pulling the original recordings apart, then you start hearing the faults. You start hearing timing issues or pitch issues, because we're all so sensitive for it now, because we can fix it. And then, but if you fix it, like I did Simple Minds, and it was a track where the vocal was pretty off. So I fixed it. It sounded horrible. But if I went back and copied exactly what was done in the stereo mix with all the delays and chorus effects, it sounded great, but only when you put it in stereo. So some of these things need to be maybe left alone, and others are great to give it a new dimension. And some artists hear a little example of it and go, oh, can we go crazy now? Because that's what it is. And it's still music dictates if you can do it or not. It's great technology, but to come back to VME, it works in stereo too. It doesn't have to be immersive. And we don't need to use all these channels to make the music sound great. I've done 714 mixes where several channels had no music in it for minutes. It wasn't justified to do it. And then if you are scanned with VME in your room, you have 12 speakers or 16 speakers or 24, but you're doing a stereo mix, you can still use it, because it works just as good in stereo.
David, if we can jump back to you and talk about your experience with artists, either legacy artists or new artists, and their initial reaction to this technology and how you've approached that with them.
The hardest part is, you know, sometimes it's a challenge to get a legacy artist to experience it, because you physically have to get them in a good room. But now, if we could get them measured in a good room and put the headphones on, it would be a game changer. But the hardest part, is getting everybody to experience it the way we hear it in our rooms. So, that's a little bit of a challenge, but it's amazing in stereo. I mean, I use it all the time in stereo. You know, sometimes I don't even run it through an immersive platform. I'll just mix in the headphones in stereo. So it's just a great program all the way around.
Very good. And Will, you were talking about, you were nodding a lot, and we're talking about artists and how the importance of that, and that's where it kind of all starts, in that relationship with the artists and tastemakers and things like that. If you can speak to that as well.
I think with VME, what it really does is it creates a really consistent listening experience that you can take on the road, which is incredibly important for everybody involved. So, I mean, we're all working between different rooms. We all have our home studios and then go out and use equipment in other rooms. And to be able to reference how that sounds in your comfortable place in your headphones and take that on the road with you anywhere is of enormous benefit to everybody involved. And I think for the artists too, you know, once they get measured, and especially for immersive, they can really be checking their immersive mixes on the road and not have to be going into a studio with a 13-host setup or anything like that, because, I mean, so many artists are just like constantly on the road, constantly grinding, playing shows, flying across the country. And so to be able to have that in their headphones and be able to monitor the quality of, regular mixes, but also immersive mixes in a whole new way, I think is going to really elevate things for everybody.
Yeah, speaking of elevating things, if you can talk a little about the future, either projects you're working on now or next, and how you're going to apply this technology. Maybe Chuck, if you want to start.
Well, so a lot of what we've been doing so far has been catalog work, where remixing old records, trying to make them the same or better than what they were before. And kind of my idea about remixing catalog is that our mind's image or our memory of a record is generally better than what it really is. So when I go after redoing the mix, I try and upgrade it to the way I remember it. And so that's what's really exciting. But getting to do new projects where you're actually imagining the record and immersive as you're recording. Like I just finished a new George Strait album, and I called up Morten Lindberg because I was going to do strings on it, and I love his approach to immersive and so I asked him, how are you doing that? And he gave me the whole spec for his microphone array, and I set that up in the studio and actually moved the string players to one end of the room so I could capture the back end of the room. And it just came out. There's something about miking for immersive, not just panning things around, that creates this cohesive phase thing, and it makes you feel like you're really involved in the music, more so than just panning things around and putting some effects and delays on things. So yeah, that's, for me, the future is thinking like that.
And then George has, I know, some great ideas about things you're excited about.
Not right now. I want to mention that it's nice if the future meant some, what's the word, revenue. Yeah. Incentives to do this. So we've just learned that Apple Music is to pay 10% higher rates for spatial audio content. And that's hopeful, particularly from Apple, because that's all about personal listening.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's incentive for the artists to get more involved. You know what I mean? I think we all should start creating, or at least start thinking about what it's going to be like to create in these formats. And it's going to, new experiences, man. I mean, you can go to a concert, you can go to, a tiny desk, you can listen on CD, you can listen on tape or cassette, but it's different when you're immersed in the music. It's kind of like you're literally inside, the little head, that's literally you. And people can just create whatever they want. I think now, even when it comes to creativity, when I think of immersive audio, I want to be more cinematic. I want to add more movie kind of elements and sound effects, helicopters, explosions, all types of things. And that just shows, where we can take things, and it's going to unlock a whole different future for music, and it's going to revolutionize everything. We've been in stereo for 50 years now. You know what I mean? So it's definitely time for a transition. And not everyone likes it. Not everyone's going to get used to it. But we weren't used to two channels. I mean, from what I've heard, I wasn't around at that time. But when it was mono, I think you can speak on that. Mono was great. You were like, why do we need another channel, But now we're at, 16, 12, whatever you want to call it. And it's going to take some time, but we'll adapt to it for sure.
Hello. First of all, I want to say that I'm so happy to hear about the 10% increase from Apple. This year I'll now make $36 instead of $33. So that's an important streaming milestone. Secondly, though, I would like to say that a lot of folks right now, the binaural or the ambient idea in headphones is not really grabbing hold the way it should. If you sat in a studio the way we do and hear a 714 system in all its glory, there's no way you're not blown away and prefer vastly this method of listening. However, you then are told that you're getting a binaural spatial experience either with Atmos or with Apple Spatial. And you put it on, and yeah, you can hear a few little things going on, but you don't hear placement. You certainly don't hear the voice in front of you. You may hear some things around you, but it's from my side, if you're hearing all this incredible words from people about how great spatial is, and then you listen to Atmos binaural, it's kind of like, okay, what's the big deal? Certainly this isn't enough to make me buy this. I mean, what the hell? I love the stereo just as much. But when you put on the VME, now you get it. Now you say, oh, that is spatial. That is immersive. That does let me hear the vocal here or the vocal here or something in the back. Now you're truly immersive. So I say to anyone that says, meh, when talking about spatial audio, two things. One, either hear it in real 714 or hear it in VME after taking the tests and getting your HRTF. What is HRTC? Anything? That's some government agency. I don't know. So after listening to that, now I think you'll see what spatial audio is all about.
And David, if you can put into words what you're most excited about moving forward, either with a particular artist or with your own work in terms of where this will lead for you personally in the future.
Well, I agree with Frank. I mean, it's the way to hear it in headphones. Like, as everybody said, the challenge is getting everybody on the planet to be able to hear it that way. So that's a big challenge to get everybody measured. I feel that that's the only way to get it to move forward is to improve the headphone experience. And this is certainly the greatest step we've taken so far. So I'm excited about that. And, you know, the way to do it, I mean, it's going to be a challenge for sure to get everybody to be able to get measured, and then that will be the way to listen to immersive audio.
Speaking of measuring, there's measuring demos going on here, I believe. Correct? Yes. So people can experience that here at the Sony booth somewhere. So back there. So yes, you guys can do that if you didn't know about that. That's pretty cool if you haven't experienced it. I experienced it once and it was a blast. Quick side note, whoever can answer this for me quickly. We're talking about music in the stratosphere in the future. What's the appeal still of listening to something in mono, these original mono recordings? Someone puts on an LP and wants to hear the original mono mix. For the layperson, if you can, anyone can speak to that.
I can say something about that. So I didn't come from the mono space, but it's funny because I'm working on a legacy project right now, and you know everything was in mono. The stems are, you know, it's baked in. Drums are baked into the bass. One side on the left, one side on the right. So, you know, as I'm kind of like, and there's a big vary speed issues, there's tape issues. So I'm like trying to get everything back in order to match the reference. But I had to start making some creative decisions, and I say, all right, if I'm putting this in an immersive setting, am I gonna stay in mono, or am I gonna make this a stereo into immersive record? And then I tried the original approach when, you know, you have two channels. I started creating two channels. And I listened to it, and I was like, I listened to the ref. Then I listened to it in headphones, and I said, no, they're going to kill me if I do this this way. So creatively, you know, I had to figure out a way with using the mono signal on how to make immersive content out of it. And it took some time to get a good workflow. I think it took me about 3 days to really figure it out. And now I kept all of the panning the way that it was, and I kind of just used the environment. I used the low end to kind of fill the room up, and I didn't go too far. It was really, you know, preserved. And I think it's going to be a great project and a good representation of spatial audio, immersive audio, without losing context of what the feel and what that music sound like. Because I'm sure if someone came and just redirected the signals and I don't hear things the same, I would be really upset. And legacy stuff is super delicate. It's super delicate. You're talking about 50, 30, 20 years of just nonstop listening. So best believe those fans and those people are going to be on you, you know. And that's what's cool too. Just creative decisions is just what we're doing now, and being able to team up with the estates, the artists, managers, or whatever, just helps kind of like make that a better choice, and it makes everyone confident about it and involved. So.
That's what's exciting, is all the creativity you guys can bring to this with this technology. George.
We may be wanting to say the same thing, but I want to say that mixing in mono is a fucking challenge. You know, getting that mix right, it's worth it. Learning how to, what's that word? Oh, learning how to mix. Learning how to fucking mix, you know, before you pretend that you know how to do immersive. And actually going through those steps that we went through where some of us mixed in mono and stereo and had real records in stereo, and then had to do music in 5.1 and explore that space, which went sour. But we learned a lot from that, and a lot of what we learned there, we brought into immersive production. And nobody has done that better than Frank Phillip.
Not true. Not true. You're the best, and we all know it. We bow down to George. But for those of you that are too young to remember the days of early mono, the simple fact is it was not just by design and by circumstance, but the simple fact is if you listen to the early stereo records, stereo from the Beatles, you know, the drums and the bass and the guitar were on the left, the vocals were on the right, and the lead vocal was in the center. That's hardly immersive or stereo audio. It was manufactured, and even Jeff and the people that put those things together, they didn't spend any time with the mono mix. The mono mix they did, and then the stereo mix was an add-on that the assistant, whoever, would go to. So it really wasn't stereo until we started doing stereo recording and mixing. Same thing's going to happen here. Yes, we can put stuff around as we did from mono to stereo, but now we also have to start recording that way. And recording that way means a whole new set of techniques and technologies that we're going to have to learn. But the simple fact is, the more you can get the emotion out of the music, the more you're successful in what you're doing. And the simple fact is, that, at the end of the day, is what mixing is about, because any of us that were brought up on the mono recordings of the Beatles, when we heard these new remixes in stereo, they sounded great, you know, but they didn't have the emotional essence that Jeff Emmerich's mixes had in mono, because he worked not just sonically, but emotionally. And what he wanted to do was make those songs pop in a way that you could go on that journey. But with the stereo recording, what you have is a lovely sounding recording, but without that emotional connection. Now, that may be because of my memories. Granted, I don't think so, because I discussed this and we've done creative listening sessions and stuff. And it's the emotions that win every day. Because when we were growing up, the button, my mute button's about ready to kick in. When we grew up, we used to listen to these mono things on AM radio, which was like 200 hertz to 3K. And yet Marvin Gaye still popped through on that stuff. Aretha Franklin still popped through on that stuff, and we loved it. So sound is important. Emotion is paramount.
Very well said. Very interesting. George, before we run out of time, I know you wanted to talk about some exciting things that you're either working on or excited about for the future of all this.
I just want to mention that Sony as a company has been an innovator for all of the 40 years that you guys remember me being a pain in your ass. And all through that time, they've had great ideas and great research and development. And currently they have something that I'm allowed to say, which is a growth path through current immersive technologies and formats that goes well into the future of the application of immersive and whatever is next through ambisonics and through different compatible distribution methods. And it's a clear path not only for music but also for motion picture demonstration, release, but also for gaming. And the gaming guys right now carry the lead, because for gaming, they're working in 96K. They're working in ambisonics 3rd order going to 7th order. They're working with ambisonics mix buses, 24-channel mix buses. That's the future, and it's a compatible future.
Very interesting. Before we wrap this up, David, anything else you want to add from your beautiful room there?
No, I think I've wrapped it all up.
All right, very good, very good. Anyone have any questions for this panel? You guys have been a great audience, so I want to open this up to questions. If you don't mind coming up here, I'll hand you the mic.
Mixing. You talked about that a while. So what I'm saying is, I get vocalists, and I'm 74 years old, and I've been doing this for a while. Singers, they come up, and they sing, and either they have an emotional state of being, or they're not egotistical enough, or they have no energy. So what I'm saying to you is, how do you go about getting that person to encapsulate their emotions, like you just said, in the microphone?
Start with a...
Go ahead, George.
Anybody got a button? You have to start with a song. Where are the fucking tunes these days? So start there.
I agree with you.
And a song.
I agree with you.
A song with a story that the artist can tell.
I agree with you.
And it could be ephemeral. It could be abstract.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
agree.
got to be something that the artist carries in his or her mind and heart and guts.
I agree,
And
Joe.
can deliver. And if not, they should go back to, working Cinnabon at the airport.
Thank you.
Also, one just to follow up and drop water all over my pants. That's what it is, yeah. So the simple fact is that there are some singers that innately know how to produce emotion, and there are some singers that don't. Nowadays, we have the talent to take some of those singers and make them into performances through comping and retaking and so forth. But, you sit down with Aretha Franklin, there's not a lot of coaching you need to do to get a vocal performance out of that. They just innately know how to do it. So, they always say you can't polish a turd. And the simple fact is we're not all equal in the vocal department. And some people are amazing at it and some people aren't. Our job is to bring it out of those that can, but not make them something they're not.
Oh, and by the way, you can polish a turd.
That's disgusting.
Okay, thanks. Speaking of video game industry, I wonder when the VME will be available for PlayStation users and maybe provide a kit that they can calibrate themselves.
Anybody?
Ask Sony.
Anybody from... Mic check. Anybody from Sony that can answer this question? They were all busy.
Hey, we'll get back to that. Who else has a question? Anything else from anybody here? You guys have all been a great, very attentive crowd.
Oh, here we go.
Anything you want to add, or?
You're on the spot, Gus.
Oh.
My question is, speaking of video game industry, when the VME tech will be available for a consumer PlayStation and maybe provide a kit for them to calibrate their ear themselves, that would be awesome.
I'm probably the wrong person to answer that question, but I can see, we know the process. I can see that it could be simplified and there could be a kit that, someday can be sold, and you do it yourself. Put the microphones in, play from your speakers. Of course, you've got to have the speakers to play from, but yeah, I can see that happening in the future. It's not too hard.
I think Frank wants to add something over here.
Hello? Yeah, Gus, don't go away. Is there a way that we can have, when a baby is born, have it tested immediately so that we build up a database of the entire population worldwide? Can we do something like that?
Hello? You play the music, and if it smiles, it's right. You know, it's...
We'll start hooking up hospitals with the ear measurement devices. I'm sure Sony's thought of that. That's probably coming. That's the future. Anything else anyone wants to add to this great discussion before we wrap
Just
up?
one thing. Elliot Shiner out here has another solution. Listen in the car.
To add to that, he's actually right. I think the closest representation right now to an immersive experience from what we do in the studio would be in the cars. That's something that they're building. I know there's quite a few cars that are manufacturing this technology, so definitely do some research and get in there. A lot of us do the car tests, you know, even only one car that does it. So we're gonna have to go wherever it's parked. You should probably bring it out in front of them and just start doing some previews. But even just thinking about VME, you know, we love to do the car test, especially in like hip hop and pop and stuff like that. So measuring a vehicle would be cool to have, to see what it sounds like when in a pair of headphones in case I'm not in my car, you know? So, you know, again, technology and music in parallel, there's so many opportunities, and it's just amazing.
I'll never forget the first time I heard about that, where you two would drive around listening to Octung Baby for the first time in the car, and those engineers declare an REM, and I'm sure you guys can speak more intelligently about that, but how that all works for artists, I've always found that fascinating. Yeah, very good. Well, listen, you guys are all the best at what you do, and this has been a really enlightening and informative conversation, and hopefully you guys got a lot out of this and can experience VME for yourself and try to get measured, and thank you all very much.